You signed the contract. There is nothing you can do about it now. Get out of my house.
You don't have a choice in this. Sign the contract now.
I can't believe you're doing this.
Grace Whitmore thought she was bringing the love of her life home for a simple Sunday dinner, until her wealthy father's racist outburst shattered everything the moment Marcus walked through the door. But the cruel words were just the beginning of a family's descent into betrayal, because Edward Whitmore had a secret plan that would test the very foundation of true love. When a $50,000 check appears on a diner table, Marcus faces an impossible choice that could destroy the woman he'd die for, or prove that some things in this world cannot be bought. What Marcus decides to do with that money will shock you, but what Grace discovers hidden in her father's desk will leave you speechless. In a small coastal town where whispers travel faster than wildfire, two hearts will fight against prejudice, family pressure, and their own devastating secrets to discover if love really can conquer the darkness that threatens to tear them apart forever. This is a story of redemption, forgiveness, and the courage it takes to choose love when the whole world seems against you. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. Because this journey is going to take us through every emotion you've ever felt about love, family, and second chances. Grace squeezed Marcus's hand as they sat in her car outside the big white house. The late Sunday afternoon sun painted everything golden. Seagulls flew overhead in the pale sky. "We'll take this slow," she said softly. Marcus nodded. His dark eyes looked at the house with its perfect lawn and fancy porch. Grace's family had money, lots of it. His family didn't. That was okay. What worried him was something else. "Your dad doesn't know I'm black," Marcus said. Grace bit her lip. "I told him your name. I said you were wonderful. That should be enough." Marcus wanted to believe that. He really did. They walked up the stone path together. Grace carried flowers from her friend Lydia's shop. Marcus held a homemade apple pie. He'd gotten up early to bake it, his grandmother's recipe. The front door was huge and painted dark blue. Grace rang the bell, even though this was her childhood home. Edward Whitmore opened the door. He was tall like Grace, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore a crisp white shirt and dark pants. Everything about him looked expensive. "Grace, honey." He hugged his daughter tight. Then his eyes found Marcus. The smile on Edward's face froze. Grace felt the change right away. Her stomach dropped. "Dad, this is Marcus Hale. Marcus, my father." Marcus stepped forward with a warm smile. He held out his hand. "Mr. Whitmore, thank you for having me." Edward shook his hand quickly. His grip was cold. "Of course. Come in." They followed him into a living room that looked like a magazine. Everything was white and cream and perfect. Marcus felt like he might break something just by breathing. "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" Grace asked. "Sure, honey." Edward's voice sounded strange. They stepped onto the front porch. Marcus couldn't hear their words through the thick door, but he could see them through the window. Edward's face was red. Grace's hands moved as she talked fast. Then Edward's voice got loud enough to hear. "You're not having kids with that black guy." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. He stood there holding the pie. His hands shook a little. The door opened. Grace came in first. Her face was pale, and her eyes were bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. Edward followed. He saw Marcus standing there and knew. Marcus had heard every word. The silence stretched long and thick. Marcus set the pie on a side table. His movements were slow and careful. "Mr. Whitmore," he said quietly. Thank you for having me in your home. I made this pie this morning. I hope you enjoy it. Grace moved to Marcus's side. She took his hand. Hers was shaking, but she held on tight. The doorbell rang again. Grace looked confused. "That's Lydia?" she said. "I invited her. I thought it would be nice." Lydia Chen walked in with an armful of bright flowers. She was Grace's best friend and the kindest person Marcus had ever met. She took one look at everyone's faces and knew something was wrong. "I brought flowers," she said gently, "to make everything beautiful." Marcus wanted to leave. Every part of him wanted to walk out that door and never look back. But Grace's hand was still in his. She was scared too, but she wasn't letting go. "Let's go eat," Grace said. Her voice was steady even though her heart was breaking. The dining room table could seat 12 people. Tonight, only 4 sat down. The chairs were too big. The silence was too loud. Edward's wife had died 3 years ago. Grace still set a place for her sometimes, out of habit. Tonight, the empty chair felt like another person watching them. Lydia served the roast chicken she'd helped Grace cook that morning. The smell should have been wonderful. Instead, it mixed with tension and made everything heavy. "This smells amazing," Marcus said to Grace. "You're a great cook." Grace smiled. It was small but real. Lydia did most of the work. "Grace is being modest," Lydia said. "She made the potatoes all by herself." Edward cut his chicken into tiny pieces. He didn't look up. "So, Marcus," he said finally, "what do you do for work?" "I'm in building maintenance. I handle electrical work mostly. I have my license." "Electrical work?" Edward's voice was flat. "Yes, sir. I've been doing it for 8 years. I like fixing things that are broken." Grace watched her father's face. She knew that look. He was building a wall in his mind, putting Marcus in a box marked, "Not good enough." "And your family?" Edward asked. "My parents live in Springfield. My mom's a nurse. My dad works at the post office. I have a younger brother named Nate." "Working people," Edward said. It didn't sound like a compliment. Lydia jumped in. "Grace, tell us about the wedding you're planning. The one on the beach." Grace looked grateful for the change of topic. "It's in 2 weeks. The bride wants everything white and gold. We're using these amazing flowers that Lydia found." They talked about flowers and wedding cakes. Safe things, normal things. Marcus answered when someone asked him a question. He complimented the food. He was polite and kind, just like always. But Edward's words kept echoing in his head. That black guy. Like he wasn't even a person. Just a problem to solve. When dinner was over, Edward stood up. "Marcus, could I have a word with you? Outside?" Grace's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. "It's okay," Marcus said softly. "I'll be right back." They walked out to the back porch. The ocean was just beyond the yard. The sound of waves should have been peaceful. Tonight, it sounded angry. Edward leaned against the porch railing. He looked older in the fading light. "I know you," he said suddenly. Marcus frowned. "Sir? You came to our cottage 6 months ago. The electrical panel was sparking. You fixed it." Marcus remembered. A small cottage by the water. An old man who looked worried and scared. A dangerous problem that could have burned the whole place down. "That was you," Marcus said. "You refused to take extra money? Said you were just doing your job?" "That's right." Edward was quiet for a long time. The waves crashed below them. "You probably saved our cottage, maybe our lives." Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd done what any good electrician would do. Nothing special. "But that doesn't change anything," Edward said. His voice was harder now. "Grace is my only daughter. I have standards. What kind of standards? The kind that matter in our world. Marcus felt something hot and angry rise in his chest. But he kept his voice calm. What world is that, Mr. Whitmore? Edward turned to look at him. His eyes were cold. The world where my daughter doesn't have to worry about money, where her children go to the right schools, where they don't have to fight for everything they get. And you think I can't give her that because I'm black. I think you can't give her that because you're not one of us. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus could have argued. He could have told Edward about his savings account, about the classes he took at night, about his plans to start his own electrical business, about how much he loved Grace and how hard he would work to make her happy. Instead, he just nodded. I understand, he said. They walked back inside together. Grace and Lydia were clearing the table. They looked up when the men came in. Grace searched Marcus's face. He gave her a small smile that said, I'm okay. But his eyes looked tired. We should go, Marcus said. Thank you for dinner, Mr. Whitmore. It was delicious. Edward nodded. He didn't say, come back any time. He didn't say anything at all. Grace hugged her father goodbye. It was quick and stiff. Drive safe, Edward said as they walked to the car. Grace didn't answer. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then Grace pulled into the parking lot of a small grocery store. I need tea, she said, the kind that helps you sleep. Inside the store, they walked down the narrow aisles. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Everything felt fake and hard. Grace was looking at tea boxes when Marcus heard it. A whisper from the next aisle over. That Whitmore girl. With that man. The voice was old and sharp, full of judgment. Grace heard it too. Her whole body went stiff. Marcus walked around the corner. A woman with gray hair was talking to her friend. They saw him and got quiet fast. Excuse me, Marcus said with a smile. Do you know if this store carries chamomile tea? My girlfriend is looking for the kind that helps you sleep. The women looked confused. Marcus was being so polite and normal, not angry or defensive like they expected. Aisle 3, one of them said quietly. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. He walked back to Grace. She was still staring at the tea boxes. Did you hear what they said? She asked. Yeah, but it doesn't matter what they think. Grace's hands were shaking as she picked up a box of chamomile tea. It matters to me. In the parking lot, they sat in the car again. The sky was getting dark. I'm sorry, Grace said. I'm sorry about my dad. I'm sorry about those women. I'm sorry about all of it. Marcus turned to look at her. Her eyes were full of tears now. Grace, listen to me. We knew this might be hard, but we decided to try anyway, remember? She nodded. So we set boundaries, no surprises. We tell each other everything, even the hard stuff. No secrets, Grace said. Ever. Ever. He reached over and took her hand. Your dad is scared. Those women don't know us. But you and me, we're good together. We make each other better. That's what matters. Grace squeezed his hand tight. I love you, she said. I love you too. They drove to Marcus's apartment building. It was older and smaller than Grace's place, but it felt like home because they were together. Mrs. Alvarez was sitting on her front steps. She was in her 70s and lived alone since her husband died. She always had a plate of food for Marcus when he came home from work. Marcus, Grace. She waved them over. I made empanadas. Take some home. Mrs. Alvarez spoke with an accent that made everything sound like music. She was originally from Mexico, but had lived in town for 40 years. She knew everyone and everyone knew her. As they walked up to her door, a sharp beeping sound came from inside her apartment. "Oh no," Mrs. Alvarez said. She was watching her neighbor's little boy while his mom worked late. "The smoke alarm." Inside, they could hear a toddler crying. Mrs. Alvarez looked worried. "Let me check it," Marcus said. They went into the small apartment. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee. A 2-year-old boy sat on the couch, crying because the loud beeping scared him. Grace sat down next to him. She started humming a soft song. The little boy's crying slowed down. Marcus found the smoke alarm in the kitchen. It wasn't a fire, just a loose battery. But when he checked the outlet below it, he found something more serious. The wires were old and frayed. Dangerous. "Mrs. Alvarez, this outlet could cause a real problem. I need to fix it right now." He went to his apartment and got his tools. 20 minutes later, everything was safe. The little boy had stopped crying completely. Grace was still humming, and he was almost asleep in her arms. "You are angels," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Both of you." She insisted they take a whole bag of empanadas and cookies and tea that would cure anything. As they walked up the stairs to Marcus's apartment, Grace stopped on the landing. "This," she said softly, "this is what home feels like." Marcus looked at her. She was holding the bag of food. Her hair was a little messy from playing with the little boy. She looked beautiful and real and right. "Yeah," he said, "it is." Inside his apartment, they sat on the couch, eating empanadas and drinking the tea Mrs. Alvarez had given them. The stress of the evening started to fade away. "Your dad will come around," Marcus said. "You think so?" "Maybe, but even if he doesn't, we'll be okay." Grace curled up against his side. She fit there perfectly. "My dad called you that black guy," she said quietly, "like you weren't even a person." "I know. That's not who you are. You're Marcus. You fix things that are broken. You make pie from scratch. You help little old ladies with their electrical problems. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "And you're Grace. You plan beautiful weddings for people. You hum lullabies to scared babies. You stand up to your father when he's wrong. You make me want to be better than I am." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the building settling around them. Somewhere upstairs, someone was playing soft music. Outside, the evening was full of ordinary sounds. Cars driving by, people talking, life going on. Grace's phone buzzed. A text message. "It's my dad," she said. She read it out loud. "Grace, I'd like to have lunch with Marcus this week. Just the two of us. Please ask him to call me." Marcus and Grace looked at each other. "What do you think he wants?" Grace asked. "I don't know, but I'll find out." "Marcus, I'll be careful, and I'll tell you everything he says. I promise." Grace put the phone on speaker and called her father back. "Dad, Marcus is here. You wanted him to call you?" Edward's voice came through the speaker, formal and stiff. "Marcus, I was wondering if you'd join me for lunch this week. Tuesday, perhaps? There's a diner on Main Street. O'Malley's. Do you know it?" Marcus had eaten there many times. Good food, fair prices, working people. "I know it. What time?" 1 o'clock? I'll be there." "Good, thank you." Edward hung up without saying goodbye. Grace looked worried. "What if it's a trap?" "Then I'll spring it and come home to tell you about it," Marcus said. "We promised no secrets, remember?" That night, Grace texted Lydia. "Dad wants to have lunch with Marcus. Worried." Lydia texted back right away. "Trust your guy. He can handle your dad." Grace hoped she was right. Tuesday came faster than either of them wanted. Marcus got to O'Malley's diner 5 minutes early. He sat in a booth near the window and ordered coffee. Edward arrived exactly at 1 o'clock. He looked around the diner like he'd never seen a place like it before, which he probably hadn't. "Marcus, thank you for meeting me." "Of course." They ordered sandwiches and sat in awkward silence until the food came. "You're probably wondering why I asked you here," Edward said finally. "Yes, sir." Edward took a bite of his sandwich and chewed slowly, like he was trying to figure out what to say. "I've been thinking about what happened at the cottage. You could have charged me twice what you did. Maybe 3 times. I was scared and desperate. Easy target." Marcus shrugged. "I don't work that way." "Why not?" "Because it's not right." Edward studied Marcus's face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Grace is my whole world," he said finally. "When her mother died, she became everything to me, the only family I have left." "I understand." "Do you? Do you understand what it would do to me to lose her?" Marcus met his eyes. "Yes, sir, I do." Edward reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. He slid it across the table. Marcus didn't touch it. "What's that?" "A check. Enough money to start over somewhere else. To find someone more suitable." The words hit Marcus like ice water. He looked at the envelope but didn't pick it up. "You want to pay me to leave your daughter." "I want to do what's best for everyone." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up the envelope. Edward looked relieved. Marcus opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000. He looked at it. Then he tore it in half. Then in half again. The pieces fluttered down onto the table like snow. "Mr. Whitmore," Marcus said quietly, "I love your daughter. She loves me. That's not something you can buy or sell." Edward's face went red. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Marcus stood up. He pulled out his wallet and left money for both their sandwiches. "I won't tell Grace about this," he said. "Not because I'm ashamed of what you did, but because I don't want to hurt her more than she's already been hurt." He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Your daughter is the best person I know. She gets that from her mother, not from you." Outside in the parking lot, Marcus leaned against his truck and took deep breaths. His hands were shaking a little, but not from fear, from anger. Clean, righteous anger that felt like lightning in his chest. He pulled out his phone and texted Grace, "Lunch done. Let's talk tonight." That evening, Grace made pasta while Lydia chopped basil at the counter. Marcus told them about the lunch. He left out the check, but told them Edward had tested him. "What kind of test?" Grace asked. "The kind where he finds out what I'm really made of." Lydia slammed her knife down on the cutting board. "I hate tests like that. Like you have to prove you deserve to love someone." Grace wrapped her arms around Marcus's waist. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Whatever he said, whatever he did, I'm proud that you're mine." That night, as they fell asleep in Grace's bed, Marcus thought about the torn check. He'd done the right thing. He knew that. But he also knew this wasn't over. Edward Whitmore was used to getting what he wanted, and what he wanted was his daughter back. Without Marcus. The fight was just beginning, but as Grace curled up against his side, her breathing slow and peaceful, Marcus made himself a promise. He would not give up. He would not walk away. Love was worth fighting for, and Grace was worth everything. The next morning, Grace woke up feeling lighter. Marcus was already awake, watching her with those dark eyes that made her feel safe. "Good morning," she whispered. "Good morning, beautiful." They made breakfast together in her small kitchen. Scrambled eggs and toast. Coffee that was too strong but perfect anyway. "What should we do today?" Grace asked. "I bought a bookshelf yesterday. It's still in boxes at my place. Want to help me put it together?" Grace smiled. "I love projects like that." An hour later, they sat on Marcus's living room floor, surrounded by pieces of wood and screws that looked too small to hold anything together. "This instruction sheet is in 3 languages," Grace said, holding up the paper. "None of them make sense." Marcus laughed. "We don't need instructions. We're smart people." Mrs. Alvarez knocked on the door with a pitcher of fresh lemonade and cookies that were still warm. "You two work too hard," she said, looking at the bookshelf pieces. "Take breaks. Drink water. Don't hurt your backs." She stayed for a few minutes, telling them about her grandson who was starting college in the fall. Then she left them alone with enough cookies to feed 10 people. "She's like having a grandmother," Grace said. "She is. I'm lucky to live here." As they worked, Marcus talked about his childhood, how his mom used to read to him and his brother Nate during power outages. They'd sit by lamplight, and she'd do different voices for all the characters. "That's why I love reading," he said, fitting 2 pieces of wood together. "She made it magical." Grace handed him a screw. "My house was always too formal for things like that. We had a library with beautiful books, but they were more for looking at than reading." "What did you do for fun?" "I planned things. Even as a kid, I loved organizing parties for my dolls. Setting up little tea parties with perfect place settings." Marcus smiled. "So, you've always been an event planner." "I guess so. What about you? Did you always want to work with electricity?" "My dad taught me. He said knowing how to fix things meant you'd never be helpless. I liked that idea." By afternoon, they had most of the bookshelf built. It was taller than both of them and had 5 shelves. "What should we put on it first?" Grace asked. Marcus went to his bedroom and came back with a small wooden box. "These are things that matter to me," he said, opening it. Inside were photos of his family. A letter from his grandmother before she died. A small wrench that belonged to his father. A program from Grace's first wedding that he'd helped with as an electrician. Grace picked up the program. "You kept this?" "That's the day I met you. You were so focused on making everything perfect for that couple. You didn't even notice me until the lights went out. And you fixed them in 5 minutes. And you said thank you like I'd saved the world." Grace felt warm all the way through. "I thought you were the nicest man I'd ever met." They put Marcus's box on the middle shelf. Then Grace added a book of poetry her mother had given her. A small plant that Lydia had brought her last Christmas. A photo of the 2 of them from last month. "This is our shelf," Grace said. "Our home shelf." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his brother Nate. "Call me when you can." Marcus looked at the message, but put his phone away. "I'll call him later. Right now, I just want to be here with you." They made dinner together. Grilled chicken and vegetables. Simple food that tasted perfect because they were happy. After dinner, Marcus stepped outside to call Nate back. Grace was washing dishes when she heard voices outside. Marcus talking to someone. A woman's voice, sharp and irritated. Grace looked out the window. A woman with long black hair was standing next to a red car. She was waving her hands and pointing at the car door. Marcus looked calm but tired. The woman was pretty, younger than Grace. She wore tight jeans and a top that showed her stomach. Grace felt something ugly twist in her chest. Marcus was nodding and taking something from the woman. A key. Then the woman got in the car and drove away fast, tires squealing a little. Across the street, Grace saw their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, standing in her yard with her phone. She was pointing it at Marcus, taking pictures. Grace's heart started beating fast. This looked bad. This looked like Marcus was arguing with another woman while Grace waited inside. Marcus came back in a few minutes later. His jaw was tight. "Everything okay?" Grace asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, that was Tasha. My ex. She had my spare car key. There was a scratch on her door and she was upset about it." Grace felt relief flood through her. His ex. Not a current girlfriend, just drama about a car. "Was she blaming you for the scratch?" "Something like that. I told her to file an insurance claim. It's not my problem anymore." Marcus sat down next to her on the couch. He looked bothered by something. "Grace, Mrs. Patterson was taking pictures. I saw her. I think she might try to cause trouble." Grace's stomach dropped. Mrs. Patterson loved gossip more than anything else in the world. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind where she posts pictures online with her own story about what happened." Grace took his hand. "Tell me exactly what you and Tasha talked about." Marcus told her everything, word for word. How Tasha had borrowed his spare key last month. How she'd brought it back today and was angry about a scratch on her car door. How he'd told her it wasn't his responsibility. How she'd called him names and driven off. "I wanted to tell you right away," he said, "before anyone else gets to tell their version." Grace felt proud of him and scared at the same time. Proud that he was being honest. Scared of what people would say. "Thank you for telling me." That night, Lydia texted a link to Grace's phone. A photo posted on the neighborhood social media page. It showed Marcus and Tasha by her car. His face looked angry. Her hands were in the air like she was upset. The caption said, "Temper problems on Oak Street today." Grace stared at the photo. It looked terrible. Like Marcus was yelling at a woman. Like he was the kind of man who got angry and loud. She showed Marcus the photo. He looked at it for a long time. "She took this right when Tasha was calling me names. Right when I was telling her to stop." "I know. This makes me look like a bad guy." "I know." Grace thought for a minute. Then she opened the comments section and wrote, "Context matters. This photo doesn't tell the whole story." She turned off her phone and leaned against Marcus's shoulder. "People will believe what they want to believe," she said. "Are you worried?" "A little. But I know who you really are. That's what matters." The next morning was Saturday. They decided to take a walk by the ocean. The salt air and the sound of waves always made everything feel better. The walking path curved along the shore for 2 miles. Seagulls flew overhead, hoping for dropped food. The morning was cool and gray, perfect for walking. "Can I ask you something?" Grace said as they walked. "Anything. Why do secrets scare you so much? Yesterday, when you told me about Tasha right away, it felt important to you." Marcus was quiet for a few steps. Then he said, "When I was 12, my dad lost his job. The factory closed down, but he didn't tell us for 3 months. He pretended to go to work every day. Every morning, he'd pack his lunch and drive away. We found out later. He was spending days at the library, looking for work, filling out applications." Grace could picture it, a proud man too ashamed to tell his family the truth. "What happened?" "Mom found the final notice for the electric bill. Then everything came out. How behind we were on everything. How close we came to losing the house." "That must have been scary." "It was, but the worst part was feeling like he didn't trust us enough to tell us the truth, like we weren't a team anymore." Grace understood. "You don't want us to have secrets because you want us to be a team." "Exactly." They found a bench facing the water and sat down. Grace pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "Can I tell you a secret?" she said. "Of course." "When I was in high school, I had panic attacks. Bad ones. But I never told anyone. Not my parents, not my friends, not even my mom." Marcus took her hand. "That sounds lonely." "It was. I thought if I told anyone, they'd think I was weak or broken. So I just managed. I learned breathing exercises. I made lists to calm down, but I was handling it all by myself." "Do you still get them?" "Sometimes, when I'm really stressed. But now I have you. And Lydia. People who care about me. It makes everything easier." They sat in comfortable silence, watching boats move across the water. A compass marker on a wooden post pointed toward town. Home. "Let's make a promise," Marcus said. "Tell early, tell plain, no matter how hard it is." "Tell early, tell plain," Grace repeated. "I like that." That afternoon, they went to Lydia's flower shop. She was working on arrangements for a wedding, surrounded by white roses and baby's breath. "How are my favorite lovebirds?" she asked when they walked in. "Surviving," Grace said. "Barely." Lydia looked up from her flowers. "What happened now?" They told her about the photo and Mrs. Patterson's nasty caption. "That woman is a menace," Lydia said. "Last month, she posted about teenagers loitering in front of the ice cream shop. They were waiting in line." Marcus laughed. "I like you, Lydia." "I like you too. Which is why I have a surprise for both of you." She disappeared into the back room and came out with a wicker picnic basket tied with a blue ribbon. "Tomorrow is supposed to be beautiful. Take this and go somewhere peaceful. No phones, no drama, just you two." Grace hugged her friend tight. "You're amazing." "I know. Now get out of here. I have flowers to arrange." That night, they spread a blanket on Grace's living room floor to test out the picnic. Lydia had packed sandwiches, fruit, cookies, and a thermos of sweet tea. "This is perfect," Grace said, biting into a sandwich. "Where should we go tomorrow?" "There's a cove about 20 minutes north of town. It's quiet. No neighbors with cameras." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box wrapped in brown paper. "I got you something," he said. Grace's heart jumped. The box was too small for a ring, too big for earrings. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a silver charm shaped like a compass. It was simple and beautiful, the kind of thing she would wear every day. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Read the back." She turned it over. Engraved in tiny letters, it said, "So we always choose home." Grace felt tears come to her eyes. "Marcus, no matter what happens with your dad or the neighbors or anyone else, we choose each other. We choose home." She leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of everything she couldn't say with words. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you too." Sunday morning was exactly as perfect as Lydia had promised. Sunny and warm, with a gentle breeze that smelled like salt and flowers. They drove to the cove with the windows down and music playing low. The road curved through trees and over small hills. Grace wore the compass charm on a thin chain around her neck. The cove was a crescent of sand hidden between two rocky points. They had to walk down a narrow trail to reach it. The sand was soft and clean. The water was clear blue-green. They spread their blanket close enough to the water to hear the waves, but far enough back to stay dry. The picnic basket sat between them like treasure. "This is perfect," Grace said, lying back on the blanket. Marcus lay down beside her. Above them, the sky was endless blue with just a few white clouds. "Tell me about your dream house," he said. Grace smiled. "It doesn't have to be big. Just warm. with lots of windows so light comes in everywhere. A kitchen where we can cook together. A porch where we can sit in the evening. What else? Mismatched furniture that we picked out together. Soft lamps instead of harsh overhead lights. Photos on the walls of people we love. A bookshelf in the living room? Definitely a bookshelf, with our books mixed together so you can't tell whose is whose. Marcus turned on his side to look at her. It sounds perfect. What about your dream house? Same as yours, just with a workshop in the garage where I can fix things. They ate their lunch slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Grace told Marcus about her favorite client, a couple in their 70s who were renewing their vows after 50 years of marriage. Marcus told Grace about the time he and Nate got lost in the woods behind their house when they were kids. How their mom found them hours later, scared but unhurt. How she hugged them and cried and made them promise never to wander off again. Do you want kids? Grace asked. Someday, with the right person? He touched her hand. What about you? Someday, when we're ready. When we have that house with the warm light and the mismatched furniture. The afternoon passed like a dream. They walked along the water, picking up smooth stones and shells. They sat in the shade and read. Grace fell asleep with her head on Marcus's shoulder while he played with her hair. As the sun started to set, painting the sky pink and gold, they packed up their things. Thank you, Grace said as they walked back to the car. For today, for the compass, for everything. Thank you for choosing me, Marcus said. That evening, they made pasta at Grace's apartment again. It was becoming their tradition. Simple dinners with too much garlic and not enough vegetables. Grace was grating cheese when someone knocked on the door. That's probably Lydia, she said. She said she might stop by. But when Grace opened the door, it was Nate, Marcus's younger brother. He was tall like Marcus, but thinner. He had an easy smile and kind eyes. Hey, Grace, is my brother here? Of course. Come in. Marcus came out of the kitchen with a smile that faded when he saw Nate's face. What's wrong? Marcus asked. Can we talk? All of us? They sat in the living room. Nate looked uncomfortable, like he had bad news to deliver. I should have called you back yesterday, he said to Marcus. But I wasn't sure what to say. About what? Nate took a deep breath. Thursday night, I was driving for the rideshare app, picked up a fare downtown. Turned out to be Grace's dad. Grace felt her stomach drop. My dad was in your car? Yeah, at first he was just making conversation. Then he started asking questions about Marcus, about our family, about our background. Marcus's jaw got tight. What kind of questions? Where we grew up, what our parents do, whether Marcus had ever been arrested, whether he'd ever been married, how long you two had been dating. He was checking up on me, Marcus said quietly. It felt like that, yeah, like he was doing some kind of background check. Grace felt sick. Her father was investigating the man she loved, treating him like a criminal. I didn't tell him anything personal, Nate said quickly. Just basic stuff, but I thought you should know. Grace put her head in her hands. I'm so sorry. My father has no right to do that. He's scared, Marcus said. Scared people do stupid things. Are you making excuses for him? Grace asked. No, just trying to understand him. Nate stayed for dinner. He told them funny stories about his rideshare customers, a woman who insisted on giving directions to her own house, a man who fell asleep and woke up 3 towns over. But Grace couldn't really laugh. Her father's behavior felt like a betrayal. Not just of Marcus, but of her. After Nate left, Grace and Marcus cleaned up the kitchen in quiet. Are you okay? Marcus asked. No, I'm angry and embarrassed and sad. Your dad loves you. He's just what? Racist? Controlling? Determined to ruin the best thing that's ever happened to me? Marcus turned to face her. Grace, you can't control what your dad does. You can only control what you do. And what should I do? Whatever feels right to you. I'll support you either way. Grace looked at him. This man who baked pies from scratch, who fixed dangerous electrical problems for old ladies, who gave her compass charms and listened to her dreams about warm houses and mismatched furniture. Her father was trying to find something wrong with him, some reason why Marcus wasn't good enough for her. But Grace already knew everything she needed to know about Marcus Hale. He was kind. He was honest. He made her feel safe and loved and seen. That night, she lay in bed thinking about her father, about the man who used to read her bedtime stories and teach her to ride a bicycle, about the man who held her hand at her mother's funeral and promised they'd take care of each other. That man seemed very far away from the one who was secretly investigating her boyfriend. She fell asleep with the compass charm pressed against her heart. In her dreams, she and Marcus were in their warm house with the mismatched furniture. Her father was there too, smiling and happy and sorry for all the trouble he'd caused. But when she woke up, she knew dreams and reality were two different things. The next evening, Grace had to stop by her father's house to pick up her mother's old cookbook. She was catering a small dinner party and wanted to use her mom's recipe for lemon cake. The house felt different now, colder, like she was visiting a stranger instead of coming home. Her father was in his study, reading behind a big wooden desk. The room smelled like leather and expensive cologne. "Hi, Dad," she said from the doorway. "Grace, sweetheart, what brings you by?" "Mom's cookbook, the red one with the cake recipes. Kitchen cabinet, top shelf on the left." She found the cookbook exactly where he said it would be. The cover was worn soft from years of use. Her mother's handwriting filled the margins with notes and changes. As she was leaving, she decided to look for something else. A birthday card her mother had written her years ago. She thought it might be in the study somewhere. Her father was in the kitchen making tea. Grace slipped into the study and opened the desk drawer where he kept important papers. The card wasn't there, but something else was. A copy of a torn check, made out to Marcus Hale for $50,000. The memo line said, "For Grace's future." At the bottom, a sticky note in her father's handwriting. "Bank confirms available funds." Grace stared at the check copy until the numbers blurred together. Her father had offered Marcus money to leave her. $50,000 to walk away and never come back. And Marcus had never told her. Her hands shook as she put the paper back in the drawer. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Outside, the sun was setting. Through the study window, she could see the neighbors' houses glowing with warm yellow light. Normal families having normal dinners. No secrets, no bribes, no lies. Grace walked to the kitchen where her father was pouring tea into china cups. "Dad?" she said, her voice steady even though she was breaking apart inside. "You offered Marcus money." Edward froze with the teapot in his hand. "You offered him money to leave me," she said again. He set the teapot down carefully. "Grace? $50,000. I saw the check copy in your desk. It wasn't what you think." "What was it then?" Edward looked older than she'd ever seen him, tired and small. "I was trying to protect you." "From what? From being happy? From being loved? From making a mistake that would change your whole life?" Grace felt something cold settle in her chest. Something that might have been the end of loving her father the way she used to. "Marcus is not a mistake," she said quietly, "but this is." She picked up the cookbook and walked out of the house. Behind her, she heard her father call her name, but she didn't turn around. In her car, she sat in the driveway holding the cookbook and fighting back tears. The compass charm felt heavy around her neck. Marcus had turned down $50,000. He'd torn up the check and never said a word to her about it. He'd protected her from knowing how cruel her father could be, even though it meant keeping a secret, even though they'd promised to tell each other everything. Grace drove straight to Marcus's apartment. She climbed the stairs with shaking legs and knocked on his door. When he opened it, she said, "Why didn't you tell me about the check?" The look on his face told her everything she needed to know. Marcus stepped back from the door. His face went pale. "Grace, come in. Let me explain." She walked into his living room but didn't sit down. The bookshelf they'd built together stood against the wall. Their shared memories sat on the middle shelf, looking innocent and sweet. Now everything felt different. "You lied to me," she said. "No, I didn't lie. You kept a secret. We promised no secrets, Marcus. We said we'd tell each other everything." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. He looked tired and sad and guilty. "Your father offered me $50,000 to walk away from you. I tore up the check. I told him no. Then I asked him to keep it between us because I didn't want to hurt you more than you were already hurt. That wasn't your choice to make. I know that now." Grace sat down on the edge of the couch. The compass charm felt cold against her skin. "Tell me exactly what happened. Everything." Marcus sat across from her, not close enough to touch. The space between them felt like an ocean. He told her about the lunch at O'Malley's, how her father had praised his work ethic, then slid the envelope across the table, how the check was made out for $50,000 with "for Grace's future" written in the memo line. He said it was enough money for me to start over somewhere else, to find someone more suitable. Grace's heart broke a little more. "And you said no." "I tore it up right in front of him. I told him I loved you, and that wasn't something he could buy or sell." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Because I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From feeling like your father thought so little of you that he'd try to buy me off. From knowing how much he hated the idea of us together. From being hurt even more than you already were." Grace felt tears start behind her eyes. "Protection without honesty feels like control, Marcus." The words hit him like a slap. "I'm not trying to control you." "But that's what you did. You decided what I could and couldn't handle, just like my father does." "It's not the same thing." "Isn't it?" They sat in silence. Outside, the evening sounds of the neighborhood went on like normal. Cars driving by, people talking, dogs barking. Life continuing while theirs fell apart. "I'm sorry," Marcus said finally. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "I know you did, but Marcus, we're supposed to be a team. Teams don't keep secrets from each other, even to protect feelings." "You're right. I need some time to think," Grace said, standing up. "Grace, please don't leave like this." She looked at him. This man she loved so much it scared her. This man who baked pies and fixed broken things and made her feel like home. "I'm not leaving forever. I just need tonight to process this." Marcus nodded. "Okay." Grace walked to the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I'm proud that you said no to the money. I'm proud that you stood up to my father. I just wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me about it." "I do trust you." Then act like it next time. She left, closing the door softly behind her. In the hallway, she could hear Mrs. Alvarez's TV through the thin walls, a cooking show with cheerful hosts talking about making the perfect roast chicken. Normal life, normal problems. Grace would have given anything to trade places with the people in those cooking shows. At home, she paced around her apartment like a caged animal. She was angry and hurt and confused. Angry at her father for offering the money. Hurt that Marcus had kept it from her. Confused about what to do next. Her phone rang. It was Lydia. "Hey, how was dinner with Marcus?" Grace started crying. Big, ugly tears that made it hard to talk. "Grace, what happened?" Between sobs, Grace told her everything. The check, the secret, the fight. "Oh, honey," Lydia said. "I'm coming over." "No, don't. I just need to be alone tonight." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. But can I ask you something?" "Anything? Do you think I'm overreacting?" Lydia was quiet for a moment. "I think you have the right to be upset, but I also think Marcus was trying to do the right thing. Even if he made the wrong choice? Even then. Love makes people do stupid things sometimes. The question is, can you forgive him?" After they hung up, Grace took a hot shower and put on her softest pajamas. She made tea and sat on her couch with her mother's cookbook in her lap. She flipped through the pages, reading her mother's notes in the margins. "Add more vanilla. Bake 5 minutes longer. David's favorite." Her mother had loved her father completely, even when he was difficult. Even when he was stubborn and proud and wrong about things. But her mother had also been strong. She'd stood up to him when it mattered. She'd made her own choices and lived her own life. Grace fell asleep on the couch, with the cookbook still open in her lap. Across town, Marcus was walking the harbor with Nate. They'd been walking for an hour without saying much. "You want to talk about it?" Nate finally asked. Grace found out about the check. "What check?" Marcus told his brother everything. About the lunch with Edward. The money. The secret he'd kept to protect Grace's feelings. "Man," Nate said when he finished. "You messed up." "Thanks. That's helpful." "I'm serious. You don't get to decide what she can and can't handle. That's not how partnerships work." Marcus stopped walking. "Since when are you an expert on relationships?" "Since I watched you make the same mistake with Sarah. And with Lisa before her." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "You always think you're protecting people by keeping bad stuff from them. But really, you're just protecting yourself from having hard conversations." "That's not true." "Isn't it? With Sarah, you didn't tell her about Dad's heart problems because you didn't want to stress her out. With Lisa, you didn't mention that you were thinking about moving because you didn't want to upset her. Those situations were different." "No, they weren't. You're scared of being the one who brings pain into someone's life, so you keep things to yourself. But secrets don't protect people, Marcus. They just make them feel like they can't trust you." Marcus stared out at the dark water. Boats bobbed at their moorings, safe but restless. "So what should I do?" "Tell her the truth. All of it. Even the parts that hurt." "What if she leaves?" Nate put his hand on his brother's shoulder. "Then at least you'll know you gave her the choice. But if you keep deciding for her, she'll definitely leave. Nobody wants to be with someone who treats them like they're made of glass." Meanwhile, Grace was having trouble sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face when she asked about the check. The guilt, the fear, the love. He'd made a mistake, but his heart had been in the right place. He'd wanted to spare her pain. That wasn't the same as trying to control her life, but it still hurt. It still felt like he didn't trust her to handle difficult things. At 2 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and made more tea. She sat by her window looking out at the street. A few houses down, an old man was walking his dog. The dog stopped to sniff every tree and fire hydrant. The man waited patiently, like he had all the time in the world. Grace touched the compass charm around her neck. "So we always choose home," Marcus had said when he gave it to her. Did she still choose him, even after this? The next morning, Mrs. Alvarez knocked on her door at 8 o'clock sharp. She held a plate of fresh muffins and wore a concerned expression. "Marcus looks terrible," she said without introduction. "You look terrible too. Come, we talk." Grace followed the older woman to her apartment. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee and kindness. "Sit," Mrs. Alvarez said, pouring coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. "Tell Alma what happened." Grace found herself spilling the whole story to this woman she barely knew. About her father's prejudice, about the money, about Marcus keeping secrets to protect her. Mrs. Alvarez listened without interrupting. When Grace finished, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. "My husband and I, we were married 43 years, she said finally. "You know how many fights we had?" "How many?" "Thousands, maybe more. But you know what I learned? Sometimes the person you love will hurt you trying not to hurt you. It's still wrong, but it comes from love, not from meanness." Grace took a sip of coffee. It was strong and sweet. "Marcus made a mistake," Mrs. Alvarez continued. "But a mistake from love is different from a mistake from selfishness." "How do I know the difference?" "You look at everything else he does. Does he listen to you? Does he respect your choices? Does he make you feel safe?" Grace thought about it. Marcus did listen to her. He did respect her choices. He did make her feel safe. "Yes," she said quietly. "Then you know his heart. Trust that." Mrs. Alvarez reached across the table and patted Grace's hand. "I tell you something else. The hardest thing in marriage is learning to say the hard thing kindly and soon. Your Marcus, he tried to be kind, but he forgot about the soon part." "What should I do?" "You should tell him how you feel, all of it, the hurt and the anger and the love. And then you should listen to what he says back." Grace hugged the older woman goodbye and went home with a muffin and a clearer heart. At noon, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Her name was written on the front in Marcus's careful handwriting. Inside was a letter on plain white paper. "Grace, I want to tell you everything about the lunch with your father. Everything I should have told you right away. He asked me to meet him at O'Malley's diner. We ordered sandwiches. He said he'd been thinking about the work I did at his cottage, how I could have charged him more, but didn't. Then he pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. He said it was enough money for me to start over somewhere else, to find someone more suitable for you." I tore up the check right there at the table. I told him I loved you, and that wasn't something he could buy or sell. Then I asked him to keep it between us. I told him I didn't want you to know because it would hurt you. I was thinking about how you looked that first night at dinner when he said what he said. How small and sad you looked. I didn't want to put that look on your face again. But Nate is right. I don't get to decide what you can and can't handle. I don't get to protect you by keeping secrets. That's not how love works. I was scared, Grace. Scared that if you knew how much your father wanted me gone, you might start to wonder if he was right. Scared that you might choose him over me. So I kept quiet. I told myself it was to protect you, but really, I was protecting myself from losing you. I'm sorry. Not just for keeping the secret, but for all the ways I've tried to manage your feelings instead of trusting you with the truth. If you want me to leave, just say it, and I will respect you. But if you're willing to try again, I promise to do better. No more secrets. No more deciding for you what you can and can't handle. I love you. That's the truest thing I know. Marcus Grace read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd time, she was crying again. But these were different tears, cleaner tears. She picked up her phone and texted him. Pier, 3 p.m.? He texted back immediately. I'll be there. The town pier stretched out into the harbor like a wooden finger pointing toward the horizon. Grace arrived a few minutes early and stood at the end, watching boats move across the water. Marcus appeared right at 3 o'clock. He walked slowly, like he wasn't sure he was welcome. Hi, he said when he reached her. Hi. They stood side by side, not quite touching. The water lapped against the pier posts below them. Thank you for the letter, Grace said. For being honest about why you kept the secret. I should have been honest from the beginning. Yes, you should have. Marcus looked at her. Are we okay? Grace thought about Mrs. Alvarez's words, about saying the hard thing kindly and soon. I need you to promise me something, she said. No more hiding things to spare my feelings, even if you think it will hurt me, even if you're scared I can't handle it. I promise. I mean it, Marcus. If we're going to do this, if we're going to build a life together, I need to know you trust me enough to tell me the truth. All of it. I do trust you. I love you so much. I want to protect you from everything, including my own family and the people who are supposed to love you. I don't need protection from the truth. I need partnership. I need someone who believes I'm strong enough to handle hard things. Marcus reached for her hand. She let him take it. You are strong enough. You're the strongest person I know. I won't forget that again. Grace felt something loosen in her chest. Something that had been tight and angry since last night. I love you too, she said. Even when you make stupid choices trying to protect me. Even then. They walked back toward town together, their hands linked. The afternoon sun was warm on their faces. There's something else we need to talk about, Grace said. That photo Mrs. Patterson took. We should go see her. Set the record straight about what really happened with Tasha. You want to do that? I want people to know the truth, not just her version of it. They found Mrs. Patterson in her front yard, watering flowers that didn't need watering. She was clearly hoping to catch some neighborhood drama. Mrs. Patterson? Grace said politely. Could we talk to you for a minute? The older woman looked excited. Of course, dear. What about? About the photo you posted yesterday, of Marcus and his ex-girlfriend. Mrs. Patterson's face got red. I was just sharing what I saw. What you saw was Marcus telling a woman to file an insurance claim for a scratch on her car, Grace said calmly. She was angry because she thought he was responsible. He wasn't. That's not what it looked like. I know, but that's what happened. The caption you wrote about temper problems isn't true. Marcus stepped forward. Mrs. Patterson, I understand why the photo looked bad, but I'd appreciate it if you could correct the story. Maybe just say it was an argument about a car key. Mrs. Patterson looked embarrassed. I suppose I could edit the post. Thank you, Grace said. We'd appreciate that. As they walked away, Grace felt proud of how they'd handled it. No anger, no accusations, just the truth, told kindly. They were almost to Marcus's building when Grace saw a familiar figure walking toward them. Her father, wearing a baseball cap and walking slowly. "Grace," Edward called out, "may I speak to both of you?" Grace looked at Marcus. He squeezed her hand. "Okay," she said. Edward stopped in front of them. He looked older than Grace had ever seen him, tired and sad and ashamed. "I owe you both an apology," he said. "Especially you, Marcus." "Mr. Whitmore, please let me say this." Edward took off his cap and held it in his hands. "I was wrong. About the money, about investigating your family, about everything." Grace felt her heart speed up. "I was scared," Edward continued. "Scared of losing my daughter to someone I didn't understand, someone from a different world than ours." "Dad." "But I was wrong about you, Marcus. You're a good man, an honest man. When you fixed our cottage, you could have taken advantage of a scared old man. You didn't. When I offered you money to leave my daughter, you could have taken it. You didn't." Edward looked at Grace. "And you, sweetheart, I was wrong to treat you like you couldn't make your own choices, like you needed me to decide who was good enough for you." "Thank you," Grace said quietly. "I'd like to start over, if you'll let me. Maybe we could have dinner this weekend? All of us together, including Marcus's brother, if he'd like to come. And your friend Lydia?" Grace looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Sunday dinner," she said. "But at a restaurant, neutral territory." Edward smiled for the first time in weeks. "Perfect." As her father walked away, Grace felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "Think he means it?" Marcus asked. "I think he's trying to. That's enough for now." They climbed the stairs to Marcus's apartment together. Mrs. Alvarez peeked out of her door with a smile. "You look better," she said to both of them. "Good. Fighting is healthy sometimes. It clears the air." That night, they made dinner together in Marcus's small kitchen. Pasta again, because it was their thing now. They talked about the restaurant they'd choose for Sunday dinner, about whether Nate would come, about how to give Edward a second chance without forgetting the first. "I'm sorry about the check," Marcus said as they did the dishes. "Not just for keeping it secret, for the fact that it happened at all. Your father loves you. He's just scared of losing you." "Does that excuse what he did?" "No, but it explains it, and maybe it's a place to start building something better." After the dishes were clean, they sat on Marcus's couch with the bookshelf full of shared memories beside them. Grace picked up the compass charm and turned it over in her hand. "So we always choose home," she read aloud. "Do we?" Marcus asked. "Even after all this?" Grace looked at him. This man who had tried to protect her heart, even when it meant breaking his own promises. This man who wrote letters to apologize and meant every word. This man who was learning to trust her with the truth, even when the truth was hard. "Yeah," she said, fastening the charm around her neck. "We do." Outside, the neighborhood settled into evening quiet. But inside Marcus's apartment, everything felt new again. Like they'd taken something broken and fixed it better than it was before. Like they'd learned to choose each other and choose home, even when it was hard. The next few days passed quietly. Grace and Marcus fell back into their rhythm of morning coffee and evening walks. But something had changed between them. Something good. They talked more now. About small things and big things. About fears they'd never shared and hopes they'd been too scared to say out loud. Wednesday night, Marcus was fixing a loose cabinet door in Grace's kitchen when she said, "I've been thinking about what you wrote in your letter." "Which part?" "About being scared I might choose my father over you." Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "I would never do that," Grace said. "Choose anyone over you. I need you to know that." "I'm learning to believe it." "Good, because it's true." Thursday evening, Lydia came over to help Grace pick out something to wear for Sunday dinner. They spread 3 different dresses across Grace's bed. "The blue one," Lydia said. "It makes you look happy." "I am happy. For the first time in weeks, I'm actually happy." Lydia smiled. "You and Marcus are good together, even when you fight." "What do you mean?" "You fight fair. You listen to each other. You say you're sorry when you mess up. That's how you know it's real love." Grace picked up the blue dress and held it against herself in the mirror. It was simple and pretty, the kind of dress that said, "I'm trying, but I'm not trying too hard." "Do you think my dad will behave himself?" Grace asked. "I think he's scared enough to try, and if he doesn't, Marcus will handle it. He's good at staying calm under pressure." "Yeah, he is." Friday morning, Marcus called his brother. "Want to come to dinner Sunday? Meet Grace's father properly?" Nate was quiet for a moment. "The one who tried to pay you off?" "The same one, but Grace thinks he's trying to change." "What do you think?" Marcus thought about it. "I think people can change if they want to badly enough, and I think he wants to keep his daughter in his life." "Then I'll be there, but if he says anything stupid, I'm calling him out." "Deal." Saturday, Grace stopped by Mrs. Alvarez's apartment with a plate of the cookies she'd baked for Sunday dinner, a test batch to make sure they turned out right. "You're nervous," Mrs. Alvarez said, taking a bite of cookie. "These are perfect, but you're nervous." "Is it that obvious?" "To me, yes. Sit. Tell Alma why you're worried." Grace sat at the small kitchen table. "What if this dinner goes badly? What if my father pretends to be nice but doesn't really change? What if he hurts Marcus again?" Mrs. Alvarez poured tea into 2 cups. "What if it goes well?" "I hadn't thought about that. Sometimes we worry so much about bad things happening that we forget good things can happen too." Grace sipped her tea. It was warm and sweet and calming. "When my Eduardo died," Mrs. Alvarez said, "I thought I would never be happy again. I thought my life was over at 67 years old." "But you seem happy now?" "I am, but it took time. And it took letting people love me even when I was difficult. Your father, he's learning the same thing. How to let people love him even when he makes mistakes." Grace left Mrs. Alvarez's apartment feeling lighter. On her way home, she texted Marcus. "Want to take a walk?" They walked their usual path along the harbor. The evening was cool and clear. Stars were just starting to appear in the darkening sky. "Tomorrow night," Marcus said. "Tomorrow night. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together." Grace took his hand. Together. Sunday arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm with a gentle breeze. Grace wore the blue dress and the compass charm. Marcus wore a white button-down shirt and dark pants. They looked like the kind of couple who belonged together. They met everyone at Romano's, a family restaurant downtown. It was nice enough to feel special, but casual enough that no one would feel out of place. Edward arrived first, wearing a navy jacket and a nervous expression. He stood when he saw Grace and Marcus walking in. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, hugging Grace carefully. "Thank you, Dad." Grace stepped back. "You remember Marcus?" "Of course." Edward held out his hand. "Marcus, thank you for giving me another chance." "Thank you for wanting one." They shook hands. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. Nate arrived next, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. He was taller than Marcus and had an easy smile that made people like him right away. "Mr. Whitmore?" he said, shaking Edward's hand. I'm Nate, Marcus's brother. Please, call me Edward. It's nice to meet you properly. You too. Lydia came in carrying a small bouquet of flowers for the table. She hugged everyone, including Edward, who looked surprised but pleased. These are beautiful, he said, taking the flowers. Thank you. They're from my shop. A little sunshine for the table. Mrs. Alvarez arrived last, wearing a pretty dress and carrying a covered basket. I brought bread, she announced. Homemade, still warm. Grace made the introductions. Mrs. Alvarez, this is my father, Edward Whitmore. Dad, this is Mrs. Alvarez. She lives in Marcus's building and makes the best food in town. Alma, Mrs. Alvarez corrected, shaking Edward's hand firmly. And you are the father who made the mistakes. Edward looked startled. Yes, I suppose I am. Good. Mistakes are how we learn. You seem like a man who can learn. They sat around a large round table. Grace had chosen it specifically so no one would be at the head. Everyone was equal. The conversation started slowly. Small talk about the weather and the food and how pretty the restaurant was. But gradually, it warmed up. Nate told funny stories about his job driving for the rideshare app. Lydia talked about her flower shop and the wedding she was planning for next month. Mrs. Alvarez shared stories about the neighborhood and the people who live there. Edward listened more than he talked. But when he did speak, he asked good questions. About Nate's plans for college, about Lydia's business, about Mrs. Alvarez's family. My grandson is starting at the community college in the fall, Mrs. Alvarez said. He wants to study electronics. Maybe Marcus can give him some advice about being an electrician. I'd be happy to, Marcus said. It's good work, steady, and there's always something new to learn. Edward cleared his throat. Marcus, I owe you more than an apology. When you fixed our cottage, you probably saved our lives. I never properly thanked you for that. You don't need to thank me. I was just doing my job. No, it was more than that. You went above and beyond, and you refused extra payment. Edward's voice was quiet. That told me everything I needed to know about your character. I just wasn't ready to listen. Grace felt tears prick behind her eyes. This was her father. The man who had raised her. The man who had taught her to be strong and kind and fair. He'd lost his way for a while, but he was finding it again. We all make mistakes, Marcus said. What matters is what we do next. What I'm going to do next is be a better father, and hopefully someday a better friend to you. Nate leaned forward. Mr. Whitmore, Edward, can I ask you something? Of course. What changed your mind? About Marcus and Grace? Edward was quiet for a long moment. I realized I was about to lose my daughter over my own fear and prejudice, and I realized that would be the biggest mistake of my life. He looked at Grace. Your mother would have been ashamed of me. She taught me better than that. Grace reached across the table and took her father's hand. She would have been proud of you for changing, for admitting you were wrong and trying to do better. I hope so. The dinner lasted 3 hours. They talked about books and movies and places they'd traveled. They shared dessert and coffee and stories that made everyone laugh. When it was time to leave, Edward stood up first. Before we go, he said, I want to say something to all of you. Everyone got quiet. Family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up for you, who care about your happiness, who help you become the person you're meant to be. He looked around the table. Thank you for showing up for Grace, for taking care of her, for being the family she deserves. Mrs. Alvarez wiped her eyes with her napkin. Now you made me cry, you foolish man. Happy tears, I hope. The best kind. Outside the restaurant, everyone said goodbye with hugs and promises to do this again soon. Edward lingered after the others had left. "Grace," he said, "could I talk to you and Marcus for just a minute?" They stood on the sidewalk under the streetlights. The night air was soft and warm. "I know I have a lot of work to do to earn back your trust," Edward said. "Both of you. But I want you to know that I'm committed to doing that work." "We know, Dad." "And Marcus, I want you to know that you're welcome in our family, in our home, anytime." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. That means a lot." "Will you come to dinner next Sunday? Just the three of us this time. At the house. I'll cook." Grace and Marcus looked at each other. This was a big step, going back to the house where it all started. But maybe that was exactly what they needed to do. "We'll be there," Grace said. Edward smiled. A real smile, the kind Grace remembered from when she was little. "Good. I'll make my famous pot roast. The one your mother used to love." He hugged them both goodbye and walked to his car. Grace and Marcus stood together watching him drive away. "Think he'll really change?" Marcus asked. "I think he's trying, and that's enough for now." They walked hand in hand through the quiet downtown streets. Shop windows glowed with soft light. The harbor sparkled in the distance. "Thank you," Grace said as they reached Marcus's building. "For what?" "For giving him a chance. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. He's your father. He loves you. And love makes people do stupid things sometimes." Grace stopped walking and turned to face him. "I love you, Marcus Hale." "I love you too, Grace Whitmore. Even when I'm stubborn and difficult? Especially then." They climbed the stairs to his apartment. Mrs. Alvarez's door opened as they passed. "How was dinner?" she asked. "Perfect," Grace said. "Thank you for coming, for bringing bread, for being wonderful." "That's what family does," Mrs. Alvarez said with a smile. Inside Marcus's apartment, they sat on the couch looking at their bookshelf. All their shared memories lined up together. "I want to add something," Grace said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo from tonight. Lydia had taken it when no one was looking. Everyone around the table, laughing at something Nate had said. "Our family," Grace said, putting the photo on the shelf next to everything else. Marcus pulled her close. "Our family." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the building around them. Mrs. Alvarez's TV. Someone upstairs playing soft music. The ordinary sounds of home. "What are you thinking about?" Grace asked. "That house we talked about, with the mismatched furniture and the soft lighting." "What about it?" "I think I want to start looking for it, with you." Grace felt her heart speed up. "Really?" "Really. I want to build something with you, Grace. Something that's ours. A home. A home." Grace reached up and touched the compass charm around her neck. Then she did something she'd been thinking about for days. She unclasped the chain and slipped the compass off. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked. Grace went to her purse and pulled out a small keyring she'd bought that afternoon. She slipped the compass onto the ring along with her apartment key and Marcus's spare key. "Our keyring," she said, holding it up. "For our home, wherever that ends up being." Marcus took the keyring and held it in his palm. The compass caught the lamplight and glinted silver. "So we always choose home," he said, reading the inscription. "So we always choose each other." He slipped the keyring into his pocket, then pulled Grace into his arms. "Whatever happens next," he said. "Whatever challenges we face them together. No more secrets. No more trying to protect each other from the truth." Together, Grace agreed. They kissed then, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the neighborhood settled into night. But inside Marcus's apartment, everything felt like the beginning of something beautiful. The next morning, Grace woke up early and made coffee for both of them. She sat at Marcus's small kitchen table, watching him sleep on the couch, where he'd insisted she take the bed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Thank you for last night. It meant everything to me. See you Sunday." She texted back. "See you Sunday, Dad. Bring dessert." Marcus stirred on the couch and opened his eyes. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning. I made coffee." He sat up and stretched, then joined her at the table. "Sleep okay?" "Perfect. You?" "Best I've slept in weeks." They drank their coffee and made plans for the day. A trip to the farmer's market, a walk on the beach, maybe a movie that evening. Ordinary things. Normal things. The kind of things couples do when they're not fighting for their right to be together. "Grace," Marcus said as they were getting dressed. "Thank you." "For what this time?" "For not giving up on us. When you found out about the check, you could have walked away. You could have decided I wasn't worth the trouble." Grace came over and straightened his shirt collar. "You are worth every bit of trouble, and more. Even when your father was offering me money to disappear? Especially then, that just proved how much you love me." "How do you figure?" $50,000 is a lot of money. If you didn't love me completely, you might have been tempted. But you weren't even tempted, were you?" Marcus thought about it. "No, I wasn't. Not for a second." "That's how I know." They left the apartment together, Marcus's hand warm in Grace's. The keyring with the compass charm jingled softly in his pocket as they walked. At the farmer's market, they bought fresh flowers for Grace's apartment, tomatoes for the pasta they'd make that week, peaches that smelled like summer. An older woman at the flower stand smiled at them. "You two look happy," she said. "We are," Grace said without hesitation. "Good. Happy is the best way to be." On the beach, they walked barefoot in the sand. Grace had brought her mother's cookbook, and she read recipes out loud while Marcus collected smooth stones. "Listen to this one," she said. "Love cake, made with extra sugar because love should always be sweet." "Did your mom write that?" "She did. She wrote notes in the margins of everything, little pieces of wisdom disguised as cooking tips." "What's your favorite one?" Grace flipped through the pages. "The secret ingredient in any good meal is the people you share it with." She wrote that next to her recipe for Sunday pot roast. "Smart woman." "She was. I think she would have loved you. I think she would have loved how happy you are." That evening, they made pasta in Grace's kitchen while music played softly in the background. They talked about the house they wanted to find, where it might be, what it should look like. "Big windows," Grace said, stirring the sauce. "A front porch," Marcus added. "A kitchen where we can cook together without bumping into each other. A yard where we can plant a garden. Room for guests, for Nate and Lydia and Mrs. Alvarez. For your father, too, when he's ready?" Grace smiled. "When he's ready." After dinner, they sat on Grace's couch with the cookbook open between them. Grace read her mother's notes while Marcus listened. "She sounds like she was an amazing person," he said. "She was. I wish you could have met her." "Me too. But Grace?" "Yeah? I think she's still here, in the things she taught you, in the way you love people, in your kindness and your strength." Grace leaned against his shoulder. "I love you, Marcus. I love you too." Outside, the night was quiet and peaceful. Inside Grace's apartment, they planned their future together. A future built on honesty and trust and choosing each other every single day. The compass charm on their shared keyring caught the lamplight, pointing not north or south, but towards something more important. Home. A week later, they found themselves in Edward's kitchen, laughing over a pot roast that was slightly burned around the edges. "I'm out of practice," Edward admitted, poking at the meat with a fork. "It's perfect," Grace said, and meant it. Marcus helped Edward carve, while Grace made gravy from the pan drippings. The three of them worked together like they'd been doing it for years. Over dinner, Edward told them about his week, about the book he was reading, about the neighbor's cat that had adopted him. Normal things. Father things. "I've been thinking," he said as they cleared the plates, "about selling this house." Grace looked surprised. "Dad, you love this house." "I do, but it's too big for one person, and it has difficult memories." "What would you do instead?" "Maybe buy something smaller, closer to town, closer to you." Grace felt something warm spread through her chest. "I'd like that." After dinner, they sat on the back porch watching the sun set over the water. The same porch where Edward had offered Marcus money to disappear. Tonight, it felt like a different place entirely. "Marcus," Edward said as they were leaving, "could I ask you something?" "Of course." "Would you help me look at houses when I'm ready to start searching? I trust your judgment." Marcus looked surprised but pleased. "I'd be honored." In the car driving home, Grace reached over and took Marcus's hand. "That was good," she said. "Really good." "Think we'll be okay? All of us?" Marcus looked at her. This woman who had chosen love over fear, who had forgiven him for keeping secrets, who was giving her father a second chance to be the man she needed him to be. "Yeah," he said, squeezing her hand. "I think we're going to be better than okay." 6 months later, Grace and Marcus signed papers on a small house 3 blocks from the harbor. It had big windows and a front porch and a kitchen where they could cook together without bumping into each other. Edward helped them move, carrying boxes and arguing with Marcus about the best way to arrange furniture. "The couch should go there," he said, pointing to the far wall. "I think it's better here," Marcus replied, not moving the couch. "You're both wrong," Grace called from the kitchen. "It goes in front of the window." They moved the couch to the window. It was perfect. Mrs. Alvarez brought lunch for everyone, sandwiches and cookies and lemonade. She surveyed the living room with approval. "This is a happy house," she announced. "I can feel it." "How do you know?" Nate asked, unpacking books for the shelf they'd moved from Marcus's apartment. "Happy houses feel different. They feel like home." That evening, after everyone had gone, Grace and Marcus sat on their front porch steps, sharing a bottle of wine and watching their neighbors walk by. "We did it," Grace said. "Did what?" "Built something together, something that's ours." Marcus pulled out their keyring with the compass charm. In the porch light, it gleamed silver and true. "Home," he said, looking at their small house with its glowing windows and imperfect furniture. "Home," Grace agreed, and as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they sat together on the steps of the house they'd chosen, in the life they'd built, surrounded by the family they'd created from love and forgiveness, and the simple decision to keep choosing each other, day after day after day. The compass on their key ring pointed not north or south or east or west, but toward the only direction that mattered, toward home, toward each other, toward the future they would write together, one honest conversation at a time. The end.